Michelle Brooks, Workshop Challenge 6. The armed forces are trained to be mentally resilient due to the tasks they have to perform within their job role. How can we support ex-armed forces with their mental health and adapting back to civilian life? The job role within the armed forces is not your usual job. Whether you're training or you're on tour, it's an extremely high-stress environment with low sleep. They cannot afford to allow their emotions to get in the way either. No matter how much training, they'll be put into situations that will end up with a fight or flight response. Nobody knows how you'll respond until you're put into that situation. Before going on tour, you need to write your own will and a letter to loved ones in case of your death. You may see the death of a colleague or cause death to another human, or you may need to come to terms with an injury that you may receive yourself. When leaving the army, it isn't just a change of job roles, it's a complete change of your lifestyle. If you're living on the barracks, you may end up leaving to go to a new home, a completely different location, complete change of who you're living with, sometimes going from a barracks full of people to being on your own. If you're living on the barracks, your house and bills are already paid for, so if you move out, you'd need to learn how to deal with your finances, and you can also go to the cookhouse for your meals, so you'll have to learn how to shop for your weekly meals and cook them. You'll need to find yourself a new job, including doing your CV, going to interviews and preparing your personal statement. And on top of all of this, you're leaving a high adrenaline job to a much quieter life. Many ex-armed forces end up in prison as they go to look for this high, or end up with drug or alcohol issues. The army way of life is also completely different to how they deal with situations, and so they'll need to learn to adapt to the civilian way. You can't solve a problem in the boxing ring on the outside. It's clear from the headlines that there's obviously an issue that needs to be resolved. Veteran suicide epidemic of our time. More than a dozen British soldiers who fought in Afghan killed themselves within 2 months, and more soldiers took their lives than were killed by the Taliban. There has always been a stigma with mental health, but even more so in the armed forces where you're meant to be mentally resilient. With 84% of ex-personnel reported mental health issues but not seeking help, and UK coroners not stating on the death certificate that the deceased was a veteran, the problem could be a lot worse than we realise. From the research shown, there's obviously an issue with substance and alcohol abuse as well as PTSD, depression and anxiety. With a recent study showing that over double the amount of women are being assessed for mental disorders shows that they're more willing to come out and talk about their feelings, and would suggest that the stigma lies more with men. From this, then looking at the amount of suicide between 2000 and 2019, with 94% being male, makes me wonder if there's less women suicide due to the fact that they're more likely to seek help. From the previous statistics, my target audience is predominantly male, although I don't want to discount anyone that's needing support. The age range is between 18 to 45, as statistics show that they are less likely to seek help and there's a higher rate of suicide. With being trained to be mentally resilient along with the stigma, people are not reaching out for help when they need it. My main aim is to find a way to support their mental health when current methods don't seem to be working. As I am not male, nor have I been in the army, I think it's really important for me to research and understand the issues. What methods are they going to respond to if talking isn't helping? Understanding the stigma, which will help me find the right angle to approach this problem with, and also what other methods I can use to support that will work for them. My next step is to reach out to more veterans and to get a wider understanding of their problems that they face, as well as charities to understand what they're doing, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and also dealing with this matter is extremely sensitive, so I don't want to trigger anybody else's mental health issues or make them feel worse. I think it's really important for me to understand the best way to attack this. With the current research that I've done, I found all of the websites seem to be giving the same kind of advice or call line or chat. The only one that's slightly different at the moment is All Call Signs, who are providing a beacon, so if you are at the point that you feel like you're going to commit suicide, it contacts all people. But the majority of them are the same, so I'd like to look at something slightly different that will still provide the call lines and the emergency information, but also something that's quite discreet, really easy to navigate through and access, but also will provide that support hopefully before they get to the point that they feel suicidal, so more of a proactive approach rather than a reactive.